So then what we need to do is to develop some short-term objectivity by assessing the environment that we meet. That's what this next section starts to talk about. So don't be scared off by the large numbers of words here. We'll go through it. So essentially what we're talking about when we are discussing assessment is that it's a way to get some short-term or some local objectivity. We've got to recognize that this is not developing a permanent sense of objectivity. It's just giving us a temporary sense of objectivity as we go into an environment, or potentially also after an environment, after an experience. But what we've got to do is to analyze the different components of the experience. So we were talking about the environment being full of triggers, the receipt, reaction, response, and that the inner personality has the causes of experience. And so these are the areas that we start to analyze. So we start off. He says you analyze environment and circumstances, roles, goals, ideals, and obligations. So the first is, where am I? And who am I here? We have to be clear on this. You can take any simple example right the way through to much more significant examples. But let's say a family situation. Where am I? I'm at Thanksgiving. Who am I here? I am the newest son-in-law in this environment. It's important to understand, because if the answer to the question is I am the natural son of the parents whose house that I'm in, being a son and being a son-in-law are very different relationships, very different environments to be in. It's important that we know who we are in a particular environment, because how our actions are going to be received will be dependent upon that. If I'm the son, I can be a lot more loose with my talk. I can say what I like, and if someone gets upset, oh, you're taking things too seriously, leave me alone. I've got to be a bit more careful when I'm the newest son-in-law. I can't just say everything that pops into my head. So this is an important thing to understand. Where am I, and who am I in this environment? Same with the workplace. In this office, I am the boss. When I go to a meeting in the boardroom on the top floor, I'm just another middle manager. I've got to have that clear understanding of where I am, what the expectations of me are, and how the environment will receive my activities, my expressions. And that becomes something that you can refer to help to give yourself guidance. Otherwise, what's going to guide your activities? The mind, the way I happen to feel at any given moment. I've got to have something objectively outside of my feelings that I can refer to as a roadmap to get to the place I want to get to. And it's this referring of things outside the mind that we call objectivity. The thing outside the mind is the intellect. The intellect is subtler than the mind. It exists outside it. So anytime we're doing anything to engage with the intellect or rise into the intellect, we are shifting out of our emotional involvement. The first part of it. The next part is, what am I trying to achieve and why? This is a really interesting question, because if you've ever had people come to you with a problem or an issue that they're trying to solve, or whatever it happens to be, they're upset about something, the first question we should ask is, well, what are you trying to achieve in this relationship with your spouse or your kids or in your workplace or whatever it happens to be? The number of times that I've had people come, ask about a problem or describe a problem, and then my first question is, well, what do you want? What are you trying to achieve here? Blank look. Well, they're not really sure. What they are sure about is that the current environment and experience is not to their liking. There's something uncomfortable about it. But they don't quite know exactly what the change is they want to realize. It's just an attempt to assuage that particular feeling with no clear understanding of the direction of your actions. And why am I trying to achieve it? If we don't have a clear understanding that the thing we are looking to achieve is worthwhile achieving, then again it indicates that we are being involved. To be objective means that we know what we are doing and we know why we are doing it. So this is starting to get us into objectivity now, because I'm stepping outside of my immediate environment. I'm looking further afield to some future goal that I want to achieve. I even look further afield than that future goal. I say, this is why I want to achieve it. So I put that goal in a broader context again. So I'm continuing to step back, to step out of the current moment and view it from a much wider perspective. We're gaining that objectivity. How do I achieve it? This refers to your obligations. So it's sort of related to what we say in the next couple ones down, the next actionable step. If you don't know how you are going to achieve something, then you haven't really set it as a goal. So let's say somebody says, I'm going to be in the peak of health, and they say it to you every time they see you. I'm going to get myself healthy. Oh yeah, how are you going to do it? Oh, I don't know. They haven't really set it as a goal, have they? It's only when you sit down and try to elucidate the steps to get from here to there that you are really formulating the goal and the path. So that again is a way of assessing the entire environment. What do I want to achieve? I want to be the mayor of the city. Now I can say it over and over and over again, but until I figure out how would I actually do that? What's the last thing that happens before you become mayor? Well, you've got to get people voting for you. What about before that? What about before that? What about before that? And right the way through to today, here and now. This is what I want. These are the steps I have to put in to achieve it. So understanding how we are going to achieve the goal that we've set is a method of crystallizing it in our own intellect so that we can view it more objectively. What can I offer? The moment we have this notion of wanting to offer something to the environment, what's happening? What's shifting? What's changing? Yeah. What we're getting rid of is our selfish relationship to it. So the reason that I have an expectation that I'm all caught up and involved in is because if that expectation is met, I get some sort of personal gain out of it. So we are personalizing the experience. But if I can say, what can I offer? Immediately implicit in that statement is, irrespective of what I want, what does this environment need? What can I offer to it? The moment we have that as a sincere question in our mind, it's obvious that we're saying irrespective of my personal demands. Imagine someone comes to your home. You're throwing a dinner party, and one of your neighbours walks into your home and says, I'm here to help you set up for your dinner party, but only if it's doing things that I like doing. It's not a very rich offer of help. The bathroom needs to be clean. Oh, no, I don't really want to do that. The vegetables need to be chopped. I'm not much of a cook. I don't like that kind of thing. Well, we need to move the chairs. Yeah, my back, I don't want to put it at risk. As long as I like doing it, I'll help you. It's not really help, is it? So too, implicit in the notion of wanting to serve an environment, it means that you're taking your own personal perspective out of it. This is objectivity. What's the next actionable step? This is a really important one. The reason that we get caught up in worry and anxiety is because we are not acting towards a goal. I remember one of my bosses from years ago when I was still at high school. He used to say to me, worrying's a bit like a rocking chair. It's something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Worry is like that. It's something for the mind to do, but what about, but what about, but what about? But it's not actually taking us towards anything. Okay, I'm worried about my body getting sick. Okay, fine. What are you doing about stopping that from happening? Nothing. I'm just worrying about it happening. So the reason that we worry is because we're not acting towards a well-defined goal. The moment I start to act towards a well-defined goal, I cannot worry anymore because my attention is now consumed with the present action directed towards that well-chosen outcome. So you take an example, say, of earthquake. Let's say an earthquake has happened and bits and pieces of your home have fallen together and the road has got cracks in it. You can sit there and worry, or you can initiate your earthquake plan. If you've ever been, I presume most of us have been in an earthquake, if you've ever been in an earthquake which is a significant one, where there was significant damage, the moment you start acting towards putting in place the plan that you've set, your worry just vanishes. When we're actually acting towards the plan that we've put in place, we're just in the middle of our action. We haven't got time to worry. So what is the next actionable step towards what? The goal that I am convinced is worthwhile achieving, that is directed towards the well-being of my environment. This is developing objectivity. And finally, what's more important than this even? Whatever the environment happens to be, okay, I'm worried about getting into college, or I'm worried about fixing my home in the earthquake, or I'm worried about not gaining the popularity of my peers, or not getting the job that I'm applying for. Okay, fine. Be worried about that, but just also consider what's more important than this. What would you not sacrifice in order to make this happen? We all want to be physically healthy, physically attractive. That's fine. But would you sacrifice the positive, healthy, emotional relationships that you have in your life in order to have a perfectly healthy, perfectly beautiful body? No, of course not. So while I'm worried about my body and how I appear to others, what's more important than that? Okay, so it's great to have a nice, healthy, beautiful body. Of course it is. Enjoy it. But what's more important than that? The moment you can step out of that and you recognize, this is nice, but it's not as important as this. Once again, we are stepping out of our involvement. So once we've done this, once we have a clear understanding of our environment, we have put in place a correct assessment of the whole experience. What that means is then we don't expect the experience to be different than it was. We have assessed the environment. That assessment has given us an acceptance of the way things are, and it's that acceptance that brings peace. More Shakespeare. In Othello, he says, "When remedies are past, the griefs are ended, by seeing the worst which late on hopes depended." So what is he saying there? When remedies are past, the griefs are ended. What's he saying? There's another phrase in English, another saying that we have, which is very similar to this. Don't cry over spilled milk. When remedies are past, the griefs are ended. When you can't do anything about it, when you know there's nothing I can do about this, I can't get the milk back in the bottle, then you don't worry about it anymore. There's an acceptance. This is what he's saying. So the context is that the Duke is giving advice to the father of Desdemona, who has just run off with Othello. And the father is understandably upset. And the Duke says, when remedies are past, the griefs are ended. What else can you do? Can you get your daughter back? Can you unmarry her from the moor? No, of course you can't. It's finished. It's done. When you recognize that I can't do anything about this now, when you genuinely accept it, not as an intellectual idea at the surface of the personality, but as insight, then we let go of any attempt to try and force things back. That letting go is an internal phenomenon. And so we achieve a sense of mental peace. So the peace comes from accepting the way things are. Accepting the way things are is facilitated by a thorough understanding of the way things are. And so this is done preferably before we go into an experience. What's the nature of my boss? He is a mad, blustering fool. Right? And I know a boss who fits this category. So when I have to go and get a purchase order signed off, or when I have to go for the morning meeting, I know what to expect. I'm ready for madness and bluster, rudeness and arrogance. So when it happens, yep, that's my boss. But if I'm not ready for it, then it's offensive to me. So before I knock on that door, I say, now what am I going to get? I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to get. Okay, let's see. Open up. Yep, I was right again. Or I was pleasantly taken by surprise. He was very reasonable this morning. It happens. So this is the first aspect of assessment. Yes?